On a street in Austin right now, a driverless Tesla pulls over to pick someone up. There are only about 20 of those robotaxis in the whole city. Waymo is running 500,000 paid rides a week, a gap of more than 20,000 to 1. And in 5 days, Elon Musk has to explain it to his shareholders. By the end of this, you'll see why Tesla's network stalled at 24 cars, while Waymo scaled past 500,000 weekly rides. And it traces back to a single promise Musk made on a stage. Because Tesla's problem was never that it can't build cars. It builds more of them than almost anyone alive. So if the factory isn't the thing holding it back, the answer has to be somewhere else. It starts in 2019. On that stage, Tesla called the event Autonomy Day. Musk told investors there would be 1 million Tesla robotaxis on the road within a year. That year came and went with 0. Fine. Early hype. Everybody overshoots. So jump to this January, on Tesla's own earnings call, years into the real project. Musk said the fleet carrying paying riders was already well over 500 cars. Then he said it would, in his words, double every month, that it was on an exponential curve. Do the math for a second. 500 cars, doubling every month for a year, is 2 million cars. That isn't a hope. It's a number he handed to Wall Street, and it matters more than a slide. A chunk of Musk's pay, the $1 trillion deal his board built for him, is tied to Tesla putting 1 million robotaxis into real service. So the curve wasn't just talk, it was the plan the whole stock price leaned on. Which leaves one question. A year later, where is that curve? It flatlined. More than a year after those first Austin rides began, the fleet actually carrying people is around 20 cars. Not 20,000. 20. Texas filings allow about 42. In June, Tesla did widen the service area to cover the whole Austin metro, a couple hundred square miles. That sounds like growth until you notice the fleet didn't grow with it. Same handful of cars spread across a bigger map, which mostly just means longer waits. Tesla has since switched it on in Dallas, in Houston, and in Miami. Even so, add every city together and it's still a rounding error of a fleet. One writer called it Texas-sized wait times. By any honest read, it's not yet a product you'd lean on. So the doubling curve didn't double, which raises the obvious next question. While Tesla stalled, what was the other side doing? Pulling away. Waymo is Alphabet's self-driving arm, and right now, it runs about 3,000 cars across 11 American cities, 500,000 paid rides a week, around 4 million miles a week, with no human touching the wheel. In San Francisco alone, it has more than 700 cars on the road. That's more in one city than Tesla has in the whole country by a factor of 35. And Waymo isn't sitting still to let Tesla catch up. Just this month, it turned on 4 more cities, San Diego, Las Vegas, Tampa, Denver, and said out loud it's aiming for 1 million rides a week. So the gap isn't holding steady. Every week, Tesla sits stuck near 24 cars. The rival adds rides, adds cities, adds miles. Which brings us to the thing that doesn't add up. Tesla builds over 1 million cars a year. Waymo has to buy every single Jaguar it drives. So how is the car company losing the car race? That's the story everyone's telling. Tesla fell behind. But the filings say something worse for Musk. The bottleneck was never the factory. Tesla already has something like 1.3 million of its own cars on the road, with the self-driving hardware built in. It could turn thousands of them into a robotaxi fleet tomorrow if that were the hard part. It isn't. The thing holding Tesla back is the software. Getting the car safe enough to run with truly nobody watching at scale without something going wrong. And that's the exact thing Musk spent years calling Tesla's edge. And that turns his January promise into something far worse for him. He didn't just miss a shipping date. He sold Wall Street a doubling curve on the one thing he can't build his way out of. And if that software doesn't crack, if the safety problem stays this hard, then the $1 trillion deal's big milestone, a full 1 million robotaxis in service, isn't a stretch goal. It's math that doesn't close. Which is exactly why his own shareholders are done being patient. Ahead of the July 22nd earnings call, the questions Tesla investors pushed to the top weren't about the vision or the dream. They were about the misses. As one put it, Tesla has now missed its short-term robotaxi targets 3 earnings calls in a row. It went from a promise to cover half the United States by the end of 2025 down to a promise of 7 new cities in the first half of this year. Neither happened. Back in April, Tesla quietly changed the wording on 5 planned cities, from a firm first half of 2026 to a vague preparations underway, which is company speak for don't hold us to a date. Now investors are asking, in writing, why the growth stalled and what the new targets even are. Go back to that promise. 500 cars, doubling every month, should have been 2 million by now. The real number is about 20. That's not a company a little behind schedule. That's a curve that pointed at the moon and flatlined on the launch pad. And the man who drew it is out of quarters to explain it away. Then you look at Waymo's books, and the picture gets stranger. Even the side that looks like it's winning isn't making money. Alphabet runs a moonshot arm, the one Waymo sits inside, and it lost around $2.1 billion in a single quarter this year. Waymo's cars aren't cheap either. Each of its Jaguars, loaded with sensors and spitting lasers on the roof, is thought to cost between $150,000 and $180,000. So the leader in this race is burning billions to give 500,000 rides a week. And it still hasn't shown it can make a profit on any of them. And suddenly, this whole race looks different. This isn't Tesla losing to a rival that cracked the money, it's losing to one that hasn't, in a business where, so far, nobody has. So if the prize itself doesn't pay yet, does Tesla's cheaper way of doing it actually save the story? On paper, it's Tesla's best argument. Skip the pricey spinning lasers and bet on plain cameras. That's why its cars are so much cheaper to build. The Cybercab it's designing is meant to cost around $30,000 to $40,000, a fraction of Waymo's setup. Analysts think Tesla could run a robotaxi for about 40% less per mile and price a ride near 81 cents a mile. If that holds, it's the better business. Cheaper car, cheaper mile, run at huge scale. But that word, scale, is where it falls apart. You can't earn 81 cents on a car that isn't on the road. 20 cars at any price per mile is a rounding error. The cheap economics only start to matter at the size Waymo already runs, and Tesla is nowhere near it. The winning cost per mile is real. It's just bolted to a fleet that doesn't exist yet. So which of these two numbers really tells the story? The 81 cents or the 20 cars? So which number wins? 20 cars. The gap is real, but it isn't the whole story. The promise underneath it is. Musk bet investors a curve that only pays off if 2 things happen. The software has to get safe enough to scale, and Tesla hasn't managed that. The rides have to turn a profit, and no one in this business has managed that either. Building the cars was never going to be the hard part. Tesla wins that outright, and it isn't close. The hard part is turning those cars into a network that actually makes money. Today, one company runs 500,000 rides a week and still loses billions. The other has 24 cars and calls it exponential. Maybe the software cracks faster than the skeptics expect, and Tesla's cheap fleet becomes the weapon Musk keeps promising. We'll see, but the promise was exponential, and for a year, the curve has been flat. So on July 22nd, when Musk faces those shareholders, watch what he actually hands them. If it's another curve, another "it'll double soon," check it against the number sitting in Austin right now. About 20 cars, more than a year in. Because that's the real lesson buried in all of this. When someone sells you a curve, watch the units, not the slides. Tesla still might win this, but might win and already promised are very different things, and shareholders just notice the gap between them. I'm breaking down that July 22nd call the moment it lands, whether Musk gives investors real robotaxi milestones or just redraws the same curve. Subscribe and you'll catch which one it turns out to be.